This is Audible.
Nudged presents Kid Normal by Greg James and Chris Smith. Narrated by Greg James and Chris Smith. Chapter 1. The New House. Murph hated the new house more than he could remember hating anything ever. A light wind, such as you often find at the beginning of a story, tousled his shaggy brown hair as he stood looking up at it. He was trying to work out, with all the power of his just 11-year-old brain, why it made him feel so incredibly rotten. The problem with the new house was, it was just so new. When Murph was smaller, he'd lived in a much older house with interesting wooden stairs that led to an interestingly dingy attic full of interesting boxes, and there was a garden with interesting trees to climb and interesting dens to build. It had been the sort of house adventures happen in, although to be fair, they never actually had, but the potential was there. Now, there was no chance those adventures would ever happen. 4 years ago, Murph, his mum, and his brother had left that house behind when his mum's job had forced them all to move to a new town. That had been bad enough. But just a year later, they'd had to move again, and then again, then again. So here he was, a third of his lifetime away from the rambling old rooms he'd loved so much, staring at yet another new house, and wishing someone would blow it up or set fire to it, which in fact they would. But he didn't know that just yet. Even if Murph had known that the new house would be a smoking ruin within a few short months, it wouldn't have cheered him up very much. Underneath a brownish, drizzly evening sky that matched his mood perfectly, he heaved cardboard boxes into the box-like house and dumped them in the echoing hall, which was painted a pale shade of green, almost exactly matching the colour of cat sick. Murph's new bedroom was painted a different but equally horrible green colour, like an avocado that had gone out of fashion. It was a prime candidate for the most depressing room in the Rubbish New House award, and it was up against some stiff competition. It had nothing in it except a mattress on the floor and a set of white drawers. Had it been daytime, the curtainless window would have offered a view of the oily canal at the back of the house and a brick wall on the other side. Murph was glad it was dark. With a sigh, he unzipped his bag and started to unpack, bunging jeans and t-shirts into the drawers more or less at random. Eventually, he came to the last 4 items in the bag, but instead of putting them away, Murph laid them out on the bare mattress and sat down cross-legged on the floor to look at them. They were 4 grey shirts, the shirts he'd worn on his last day at his last 4 schools. The first was covered with signatures in felt tip. It had been a tradition there that if someone was leaving, everyone got to write a farewell message. "We'll miss you, buddy." From Max. "Stay in touch, superstar." Sam. "Don't leave us, Mighty Murph." Lucas. There were other signatures and messages too, covering most of the grey material with cheerful, multicoloured letters. "Don't leave us." But he'd had to leave, all because of his mum's job, and he'd meant to stay in touch, but he'd been busy that following year, making new friends to replace the ones he'd had to abandon. He picked up the second shirt and read the names of those new friends. Not so many names on this second shirt, but still some kind words. "Can't believe you're moving after just a year. Love, Pia." "Murph, we'll miss you. Come back soon, mate. Tom." Shirt number 3 had only a couple of names written in biro as a last-minute thought. He'd wanted some kind of memory to cling on to. The 4th shirt was clean and unmarked. Murph folded the shirts back up and piled them into the bottom drawer of the white cabinet. He'd made no friends in the last year. He'd been convinced, and rightly so, that one day soon his mum would break it to him over dinner that they were going to have to move again. Other people had become like TV programs to Murph. There was no point getting too involved, because he never knew when someone was going to come along and change the channel. As you'll know, if you've ever moved house, the first night takeaway is a very important ritual. And like every family that's ever moved into a new home, Murph, his brother Andy, and his mum sat down to eat takeaway that night, with a weird feeling that they were in someone else's home, and someone really needed to turn up the heating. They ate out of these silver foil containers because his mum couldn't find the box with the plates in. Murph knew exactly which one it was, but he was too busy stopping his older brother stealing his prawn crackers. "Those are mine, you big lump," he shouted as Andy reached across like a greedy octopus and pulled out a greasy fistful. "You don't need a whole bag to yourself, Smurf face," the big 16-year-old lump replied. "Yes, I do," spluttered Murph, cracker debris fountaining out of his mouth like the end of one of those big, impressive fireworks, only prawn-scented. "And don't call me Smurf face, you know I don't like it." "Sorry, Smurf face," said Andy proudly, with the air of someone who'd just said something incredibly clever. "Oh, come on, you two," sighed their mum. "Andy, don't call your brother Smurfface, and Smurfface, share your prawn crackers." "Mum!" shouted Murph. The others chuckled, and he reluctantly joined in. "You're ganging up on me. As if it wasn't bad enough getting dragged to Nowheresville to live in a shoebox. I am not a shoe." His mum put a comforting hand on his cheek. "I know you're not a shoe, and I know you didn't want to move again." Murph watched as she tilted her head back, apparently to fend off a couple of mum-style tears. She didn't want to come and live here either, he thought to himself. "I know it's going to take a while to settle in," Murph's mum told them both. "But just you wait, boys. You'll have a great time in the end, I promise. We're going to make the best of things here. It's going to be..." She paused, searching for the right word, and though Murph didn't realize it at the time, she found the perfect one. "It's going to be... super."